Welcome everybody to Franc Analysis. I'm your host Franco, and in this video I'm going to explain why I'm still not going to vote for Joe Biden and why I think that if he were to be in office, we will be in a worse state than we would be under Donald Trump. My friend Israel from Big Talk Little Talk, he likes to play devil's advocate and bring up points about why we should vote for Joe Biden. I've also had on John Munitz of the Hill of Roses, brought up some points about why he believes in voting for Joe Biden. And I will have the new progressive voice, his name is Joshua, on this show, and we will be discussing whether we will still see a raise in people's consciousness if we have a Joe Biden presidency. Now, this idea of voting for the lesser of two evils, it has never worked. This idea of having incrementalism in our country to help and benefit the working class people has never worked, and that incrementalism does happen, but it doesn't go in the direction that will benefit working class people. That incrementalism works for the corporations, the elites, and the right. We see the income inequality. It gets bigger and bigger every year, every day actually. Recently, with what has happened with the CARES Act and all these other stimulus packages, that has benefited the corporations way more than it's benefited the people. We got scraps as these corporations got trillions of dollars, and then the people within the Democratic Party who are supposed to be fighting for us, the people we elected there who we thought were progressives, like Bernie Sanders and Ilhan Omar and AOC, they voted for this. They got pushed by the Democratic Party establishment when it was them who were supposed to push the Democratic establishment. So that's my fear of in a Biden presidency, is that Bernie and AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, all of them will bow down and capitulate with the establishment. My fear is that people will see that as an accomplishment. People, like voters, will see getting rid of Donald Trump and having Biden there as an accomplishment. And what is Joe Biden offering us? As far as Medicare, he's not giving us Medicare for all. He said that if it were to land in his, if Congress were to pass it, he would veto it. And what he's proposing to decrease the Medicare age to 60, which is 10 years older than what Hillary was offering 4 years ago. Joe Biden is still taking in fossil fuel money, and there should be absolutely no middle ground when it comes to climate change. John Munitz made the argument that Joe Biden is at least proposing climate policies that are better than what Trump is proposing. However, I think it's more dangerous to not know that you have a fever and that you're dying of poison and you're not knowing of that. It's like a slow death. That is more dangerous than to know that you're sick, to have that fever, and then to do something about it. With Donald Trump, he is a fever. We know that there's something wrong with our country. With Joe Biden, we're not going to know that. We're going to have this false sense of accomplishment. We're going to think that we're accomplishing things with the environment, but Joe Biden is going to do favors for all these oil lobbyists. And our ecosystems, they can't wait. They can't wait. We can't have middle grounds. And that's what Joe Biden will do as a president. He will do middle of the road policies when it comes to the environment. He told his lobbyists that nothing will fundamentally change for them. We need to get rid of fossil fuels now, ASAP. We can't, and in order to do that, we can't capitulate with the oil industry. And Joe Biden has a big interest in that. That's why we get into all these wars, because we want those countries' resources, and a lot of those resources that those countries have is oil. Under Obama, we thought that we were getting a lot of positive things done for the environment, but actually he kept getting into all these wars for oil. He opened the Arctic up to drilling. He exported more oil from the United States than any other president. He bragged about it. He allowed fracking and Standing Rock happen under his presidency. And the majority of Democrats, they thought that we were winning when it comes to the environment under Obama. With Trump, we know that we're not winning with the environment. We weren't winning with Obama, but a lot of Democrats thought we were. Under Trump, we will know that we're not winning against climate change and the destruction of so many ecosystems. Joe Biden wants to get into Venezuela and get rid of Maduro so that we can have a right-wing government that will privatize oil and so that the corporations in the US can benefit. My fear is that people, progressives like Bernie Sanders and AOC, AOC is a faux progressive, but people still think that she's progressive. They're going to be okay with Joe Biden doing this stuff, and then that will manufacture other people's consent, other people who believe in Bernie Sanders and AOC and Ilhan Omar. They're going to be okay with all these regime change wars and coups that we get in. Don't forget that it was under Obama that we got into 8 wars. We were bombing so many more countries than under George W. Bush. When it comes to foreign policy, it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat. Bill Clinton built upon the horrible foreign policy that George H.W. Bush did. Bill Clinton made things worse. And then George W. Bush made things worse. And then Obama, though he promised that he would get us out of war, he got us into more wars. Under Trump, at least we knew that he's a warmonger, that we had to resist everything that he did. Will we actually do that under Joe Biden? And for people like Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball, who initially were saying they're not going to vote for Joe Biden, but now they say that they are because of Trump's response to the protests, who do you think allowed Trump to do all that? Who do you think laid the groundworks for Trump to do all of that? It was Joe Biden. A lot of the policies that Obama passed that helped militarize the police were Joe Biden's pet projects. And so they're not okay with this stuff happening here on our ground, which they shouldn't be. But under Obama, Biden and Obama were doing this in other countries. Killing people, ordering the deaths, the bombing of innocent people in other countries because they say, it's for the greater good. Greater good for who? For the oil corporations that are paying you guys? For Wall Street that's paying you guys? So when Joe Biden is president in 2020, he's going to lay more groundworks for a future Republican president to abuse. And then that Republican president will lay the groundworks for a future establishment Democrat to abuse. Now, John brought up a point yesterday about, and Israel also brings up these points when we have our panel discussions on Big Talk, Little Talk on Friday nights, is that they trust Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang and Marianne Williamson and Tulsi Gabbard for endorsing Joe Biden, and that they have experience in working within the system and that they have trust in these people for voting for Joe Biden, and that we should follow along and do the same. Also, Noam Chomsky has been advocating for voting for Joe Biden as well over Donald Trump. Now, these people, they're in a different position than us. We're voters, we're on the ground. These politicians and Noam Chomsky, part of them are out of touch with what we're going through. Some of us can't wait. I've explained already how this incrementalism doesn't work for us. And these people, they're out for their own survival. Regardless of how much of an interest that they have in helping people, in wanting to help people, Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard they want to help people out. They're in a different position than we are, and for them, their career is to stay in government. And right now, if they run as an independent, that's not going to work for them. Especially Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang, because they have a much less following and movement than, it's much smaller than what Bernie Sanders has. So it doesn't benefit Tulsi Gabbard to start a third party. Don't forget that Tulsi Gabbard also signed a contract, and so she had to back Joe Biden. Now, Bernie Sanders, he has been showing a lot recently that he's not always going to be right. I mean, how many times has Bernie turned his back on progressives? He ignored the election integrity issues by Debbie Wasserman Schultz towards Tim Canova. He didn't stand up for Zephyr Teachow when she accurately called out Biden's corruption. He didn't stand up for Brianna Joy Gray when she was getting attacked by Biden supporters, and he even threw her under the bus when she said she isn't going to endorse Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders said that she's not a paid staff anymore, rather than saying that she's free to think whatever she wants because she's an independent woman. Bernie Sanders never stood up for Tulsi Gabbard and the injustices against her by the DNC, and he even pretended that she didn't exist in the race when she was still in it, when it was down to Bernie, Biden, and Tulsi. So Bernie Sanders over the years has played it very safe, so his endorsement of Joe Biden makes sense, because ever since he became a congressman, he was an honorary Democrat. That's the deal that he made with the Democratic Party, so that no Democrat runs in the same race as Bernie Sanders. And in return, Bernie Sanders votes for a lot of the things that the Democrats want, and a lot of those things were horrible foreign policies that Bernie Sanders voted for, like the bombing in Yugoslavia, in Iraq, voting to get in to install a regime change in Libya, which ended up with a illegal slave trade there. So Bernie Sanders has made a lot of mistakes because of how, as a result of him trying to be safe and trying to stay in power, thinking that by capitulating that's going to somehow help us. Well, it hasn't. Overall, it has not helped us out, because again, the income inequality has gotten bigger and bigger. Noam Chomsky, he's old. His way of thinking is outdated, and voting for the lesser of two evils has never worked again. And we have a more right-wing government than we had in the 1970s. I don't understand why he doesn't see that. Actually, I do understand why he doesn't see that. It's because he's old and he's now out of touch. We're in more wars now than we were in the 1970s. We're destroying our environment more than ever before. When you vote for somebody who's not giving you any policies that are going to benefit your life, you give up all leverage. Why should they do something for you if you already voted for them? And before you voted for them, they weren't promising you the things that you want, like Medicare for all, free public college, getting out of all these senseless wars. And when it comes to continuing to raise people's consciousness, seeing how many people voted for Biden in the primaries, how many Democrats voted for him over Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang, that tells me that there's still many people who don't pay attention to the detrimental policies that Biden and other establishment Democrats vote for. So I don't have much hope in continuing to raise people's consciousness about that. They're just gonna settle and think that everything is okay. So again, I would much rather have Trump in office, who is a fever, there's something wrong, than to have a Joe Biden in which you're slowly dying of poison and you don't know it. So what's a better alternative than to vote for the lesser of two evils? You could vote for third party, you could write somebody in, but most importantly, you have to vote in the down ballot. So the best way to make changes, and where you have more power to create changes, in your local communities. So make sure you're voting for the right candidates within your community. Inform other people around you about voting, about who is offering the most progressive platform locally. Now, when it comes to the third parties, for me, I don't like the corruption that I'm hearing about within the Howie Hawkins campaign, and how they're really only looking for getting 5% of the vote. They're not really interested in winning the race. So I'm not going to be voting for Howie Hawkins. I don't like how the Libertarian candidate has criticized Tulsi Gabbard recently, calling her dangerous. And the Libertarian Party doesn't really offer any environmental solutions. So I will be writing somebody in who I think is best suited for the job. And I don't see that as a wasted vote, because if I don't want to vote for Trump, if I don't want to vote for Joe Biden, if I don't want to vote for the Libertarian candidate, if I don't want to vote for the Green Party candidate, because I don't think that any of them are best suited for the job, but I have somebody else in mind who is best suited for the job, then I'm going to vote for that person. And I'm not going to vote for the lesser of two evils, lesser of three evils. I'm not going to do that. And then outside of voting, I'm going to continue to inform people. I'm going to continue to be active. I'm going to continue to go out to these protests and help push people to protest and help build a people's movement, and hopefully make a movement for a people's party a lot bigger than it is now, because people really need an alternative that's going to unite the country, who is sick and tired of a government that works for the corporations and the very few elites and does not work for the working class people. And the Libertarian Party and the Green Party are not fighting hard enough against that. So now is the time to really help build a movement for a people's party into something bigger, something that'll unite people on the left and people on the right. Thanks for watching that segment of Hear Me Out. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below so you can get the latest on sports, pop culture, and progressive politics. Stay informed.